Hey, it's Doug from The Nice Guys. Now, we are on vacation this week, but we didn't want to leave you empty-handed. So here's a classic rewind episode of The Nice Guys on Business podcast. Get set. Here we go.
Here's what you can look forward to on this episode of The Nice Guys on Business.
The moving industry is notoriously kind of got a bad rap, from years of unscrupulous movers. And we're trying to change all of that. We want to change moving companies in the eyes of prospective customers so that ultimately they have a more favorable impression of what we do for a living as our day-to-day trade, and ultimately be able to provide a premium service at premium prices and ultimately make more money.
The Nice Guys on Business podcast. They're going to need a bigger boat. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by TurnKey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
All right, Nice Guy community. Today is the bootstrap inspiration of all. Now, with $600 and a pickup truck, and at the age of 21, today's Nice Guy guest made it all come to life. A business gone right. He now teaches others how to do what he did, following the plan that he put in play. He's now CEO of Two College Brothers Moving, Storage, and Franchising, podcaster, entrepreneur, and owner of 5 businesses extraordinaire. Wade, I'm excited to have you here. Wade Swikle, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here too. I think what you're doing is awesome.
This is going to be a great podcast. And what was really interesting, and I didn't realize this until I started doing some research on you last week, as I was sharing just a moment ago. Nice Guy community. I had about 2 minutes of conversation, and Wade was eloquent, and so he was poised enough to say, "Shouldn't we talk about this on the show?" And I'm like, "You're probably 100% right." So let's do this. So the difference between a general business show, which is what the Nice Guys on Business is, versus a very specific niche show like my Mustang podcast and your podcast. What's the name of your moving podcast? What's it called?
It's called the Grow Your Moving Company podcast.
All right. So Nice Guy community, the riches are in the niches, or the riches are in the niches, however you want to say that. But Wade also had a general business show. And share, like, what would that, not what was it about, but just share the results versus the general business versus the micro niche. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, so I got into podcasting probably like 2016 or so, and I had a show called the Attain Anything podcast, and I hosted it with a friend of mine who owned a couple businesses. He was big into health and fitness. He had a CrossFit gym and a healthy meal delivery company, and we were both really busy, getting our businesses off the ground back then. And so we'd have to do this thing at like 5 or 6 in the morning and, over coffee. And, that one was a ton of fun because we would talk about all kinds of different business related topics. But there's so many general business and personal development podcasts out there that we just struggled to get any real traction with it. Like we're getting, I don't know, maybe 60 or 100 listens a month. And, around 2017, I was trying to figure out kind of the secret sauce to my moving business. And I was picking up the phone and calling moving company owners and just asking them for advice. And I was like, you know what? Like, these are awesome conversations. There's just so many golden nuggets here. And at the time, there was no other moving industry specific podcast. So I was like, let's turn this into a podcast and see what happens. I didn't really have an end goal in mind with it. And I just figured it would just open up some doors. And it definitely did. And so we ended up shutting down the Attain Anything podcast. But this Grow Your Moving Company podcast is now the longest running active moving industry podcast that's out there.
That is freaking awesome. And that's great. And I think that now you don't know my partner Strickland, but he and I are just stupid enough to not even look at any of the statistics. So we stayed in the general business category, even though I have all of these micro niche shows like the Ford Mustang show. And I have another show for my Ford truck. And I have another one called Sales Training for Podcasters, whole bunch of different ones. Our show gets about 50,000 downloads a month, which is a pretty healthy number relative to the, I'm not Joe Rogan or Tim Ferriss or anything like that. But what's really cool is even though it's a general show, we get a big audience. And the challenge is the conversion. We have a really crazy low conversion on our Nice Guys on Business as opposed to my Mustang show. And I would assume that it's probably the same for you. You're talking specifically to moving company owners, or probably the people that run the company, and you're giving them specific information. And I'm assuming you're using it as a business development tool for your franchisees as well. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, it's basically just a piece in this whole moving company ecosystem that I've been building over the years. Our first franchisee actually started listening to the podcast, found out about us through the podcast, and we were promoting a retreat because that's one of my businesses. We host these, we call them our Moving Titan retreats, where we bring together moving company owners for like a mastermind several times throughout the year. We're starting to turn that more into a larger scale conference and bringing in big name guest speakers. But he came out to one of our retreats after listening to the podcast, and he had a moving company in South Carolina with a business partner, and he ended up coming back from the retreat being like, man, like I want to change all this stuff. I'm so fired up. And his business partner's like, no, we're doing okay. Like, I don't really want to do all that extra work. And so he's like, well, I'm going to go down to Florida and start my own company. And so he ended up getting bought out by his partner. He called me asking for some advice to start a company in Florida. I was like, how about a franchise? And the rest was history. So, yeah, I mean, it's just served a lot of different purposes. From a learning standpoint, I learned something new every podcast. Networking, I know moving company owners now in every corner of the country and Canada, but also vendors. We have sponsors for the software and the tools and the marketing sources and the stuff that we use. So we get a lot of trade deals, or we get kind of inside access to beta test new products and services. And then it helps recruit people for our retreat business, and as well as franchisees and talent. I've had people that have come to work for me that have listened to the podcast that were working for some other moving company.
I got so many questions for you, because I see there's a lot of, even though it's totally different industry, moving industry versus the podcast production business, there's a lot of similarities in that we've created a system, and Strickland is amazing at this. He created a back end system for our production business that could be scalable to any number of, we could have 200 clients tomorrow and it wouldn't put any strain on the system, even if we only had 5 clients when we started, because what ends up happening is, you create a system that's multipliable or duplicatable and makes it really, really good to be able to do that. So it's like, okay, well, now the self-serving question is this. How do you do that? Like, for me, we expand our business by, isn't this great? I brought you on as a guest of the show now. Now I'm going to put you in as a coach here. You're going to help me here. But I understand, because this is great. Like, guys like Jeffrey Gitomer and Gary Vee have been on the show. Ariana Huffington. We've had some really big names on the show. What it comes down to is sometimes you just meet some great people that could really help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've got some really exciting guests coming up. I don't know if you're familiar with Andy Elliott, but he's a big sales coach and trainer that is going to be coming on the show. Tommy Mello, he has the Home Service Expert podcast. It's like a top, I don't know, iTunes top 50 in the home service category. So yeah, I mean, it's just allowed me to connect with some awesome people and just learn a ton along the way. And it's just opened up a lot of doors.
So talk to the entrepreneurs that are in our community that are looking to, hey, I have a great idea. I've got this business, and now I want to actually teach other people to do this business, because you've evolved from a guy that owned a moving company to a guy that franchised to a guy that taught the systems and the environment so that they could go anywhere and do it, right? I mean, because you also have a coaching business. Is that correct? That teaches people how to do what you've done?
Well, it's a retreat business, so I don't pretend to be the expert. I'm not necessarily coaching. I do a little bit of coaching and consulting for people, but it's a very small portion of what I overall do. I'm more in the business of connecting people. Like with the retreat business, that is essentially a mastermind where we bring in people, moving company owners from around North America. We have speakers, we have sponsors, we have coaches that come and talk to them. And I'm always happy to talk to people with the things that I've learned over 11 years in moving industry. And I offer a little bit of consulting here and there with it too. But yeah, I mean, my undergrad was in telecommunication, broadcast journalism. So this kind of scratches that itch that I originally went to college for. And I had no idea I was going to be starting a moving company that would become a multi-million-dollar organization and start to franchise it and stuff like that too. But I really want to get into the space where I'm coaching mostly like people in my own network, my franchisees. I'm always happy to help out other moving company owners with maybe the hopes of converting them to a franchise at some point, because we do offer a conversion model for our franchising business as well. But yeah, I love, just coaching my team, coaching franchisees, other moving companies that might have questions, and then just getting everybody together in the same room to share ideas with each other.
All right, a lot of stuff to unpack there also. So talk for just a second about your retreat business then. So you're putting together retreats that bring together other people that are in your industry so that you guys can mastermind, come up with solutions to problems that not necessarily you're the problem solver. Actually, everybody in the room as a mastermind becomes a problem solver, and you have some high level guests that come in and share their information as well, and probably have offers for your attendees as well. Talk about that for a second, the idea of putting together this retreat thing to my business owners that are out there that are thinking they got some knowledge and wisdom and they have some community built too. They're looking to do this. So maybe can you share a little bit about how that works, that business?
Yeah, definitely. So you've probably heard the old adage, you are the five people that you hang around with. Your network is your net worth, kind of cliche sounding terms, but it couldn't be, more true. By surrounding yourself with other ambitious people that are in your exact industry, you're able to hold each other accountable, share the ideas with each other, just get fired up. And it's lonely at the top a lot of times, especially in a business like moving. You don't get to interact with a lot of other moving company owners on your own. At least most people don't, because you've got competitors in your town probably, but you're probably not sharing ideas with them. So when you get together with people from around the country, you can say, hey, we just tried out this new software. It's working out really well, or this new marketing campaign is working really well, or these systems and processes eliminate this issue that the movers are having out on the trucks. And then we stay in touch with each other throughout the year. We've got multiple group texts going for the different retreat groups that we've had, where we're pushing each other. We send pictures of ourselves working out in the morning. We send pictures of our trucks when we get a new truck wrapped, all these different things that just kind of keep us motivated and fired up and hold each other accountable while sharing those same ideas. And if we have a moving a truck heading in another corner of the country and we need somebody to help unload it, I've got a guy for that. I know somebody over there. Or if a truck breaks down in North Carolina, I can call somebody up and say, hey, who's your mechanic? We're broken down, right outside your town. So it's opened up a lot of those vendor relationships too. And a lot of the sponsors on the podcast also sponsor the retreats. So that allows us to kind of get a first look access at whatever products or services they're selling. We've beta tested new softwares and basically just formed a lot of really good relationships. And there's a little bit of income that comes from that too. Having those sponsors and being so quote unquote an influencer in the moving community allows me to leverage the presence that I've been able to establish with both the podcast and the retreat. But the retreats, it's an all-inclusive weekend. We've done 3 of them this year. Basically, we rent out either like a huge mansion, Airbnb. We rent a bunch of fancy cars. We have presentations, speakers, breakout groups. We even do like relay races. We have a big party at the end of it. Our next one is going to be in September. We're actually, for the first time, we're doing it at a resort. So we're going to have an all-inclusive resort experience where people are even getting picked up from the airport in a Mercedes G-Wagon, and they get to feel really luxurious for a weekend and just kind of take a step back. It's almost like a monetized bachelor party in a sense, but we're all in the same boat, and we all have the same problems. We all have the same hurdles, and we're all looking for the same solutions to all grow our moving companies together. And the moving industry is notoriously kind of got a bad rap, from years of unscrupulous movers, and we're trying to change all of that. We want to change moving companies in the eyes of prospective customers so that ultimately they have a more favorable impression of what we do for a living as our day-to-day trade, and ultimately be able to provide a premium service at premium prices and ultimately make more money.
So you may have answered this question when you said G-Wagon and the glorified or kind of offshoot of a bachelor party. So I'm assuming you are charging for this. Is this now a profit center for you? And was the early beginnings of this a nonprofit program just to get bodies and seats and try to see where this was going? Like, what was the evolution of the retreats?
Yeah, no, great question. We it all started because we had met each other through conferences, through podcast recordings that we did with one another. There's moving company Facebook groups. And back in like 2019, right before COVID started, it was like December of 2019, we all got together just kind of just on our own in Denver and stayed at an Airbnb, and we all brought presentations on our own businesses, profit and loss statements, and we kind of went line item by line item. And it was a lot of work. We'd spend like 2 hours talking about our company, and then it was the next guy's turn, and then we'd just go to bed because we were exhausted. Somebody tried to organize a similar meetup about a year later during COVID, And we had the intentions of going in to talk constructive business feedback, but it wasn't really well organized. And that actually turned into basically a bachelor party, a 3-day pool party. And we didn't actually get any business done. So,
Yeah.
a friend of mine who owns a moving company, actually back in my hometown, Venice, Florida. I live in St. Petersburg, Tampa, Florida. Him and I were like, you know what? Like, let's try to like get this thing organized and run it like a business. Let's have the fun stuff, but in like its own designated time slots, and let's do like actual business stuff during the day. And then so we did our first retreat. We charged for it. Didn't really make any money on that first one because we just went like all out on all the luxurious things. We got the nicest house we could find on the water. We rented all these cool cars. We had all these activities. And we've learned a little bit every time we've done it on what people like, what's a little bit too much, what's not enough. And we started bringing in speakers. We've had financial coaches come and talk to us. We've had other, super successful entrepreneurs come and talk to us. Sometimes sponsors, like our CRM, our software that we use to run our businesses. We had the CEO come out and basically do like a workshop to get ideas on what they could do to improve their software, like a focus group, I guess is what I'm looking for. And now it's kind of evolving to where we're turning it into more of like a moving company conference, because there's very little of that in the industry right now. There's a consultant that does conferences out in Arizona. There used to be the American Moving and Storage Association. That's since gone away. And so there's not really like a big conference where moving company owners all come together and it's moving specific. And that's really what we're trying to do. And we've got an awesome coach that's going to be coming out to one of our next retreats, Andy Elliott of the Elliott Group. He's kind of taken off. If you haven't watched any of his videos online, he's kind of like a young Grant Cardone, super energetic, incorporates a lot of fitness. I'm big into fitness. And he's going to do a whole day sales training at that conference. So it's great for networking. It's great for the accountability and the mastermind effect, but we're also just trying to provide maximum value. And as it's growing, we're getting more attendees. We're able to charge more. We're doing the all-inclusive resort where we cover all the food and the drinks and everything and all the fun activities. And it's just a great time. I come back fired up every time, and we've had a lot of repeat people that have come to multiple of them. So it's really evolving, and we'd like to get into other industries. We're looking for ambassadors. We'd love to have like a realtor Titan retreat, or a lawyer Titan retreat, attorney Titan retreat, or a doctor, or whatever niche industry with somebody who's well connected in that industry, and we'll put the event on. You just have to help find the bodies to come and join us. All
right. Now, Wade, you just threw up a challenge there for our community, and for me, for that matter. We have a podcast production company. We work within three vertical markets: legal, financial, and medical. And those are three that potentially are really ripe for doing the retreats. And I kept thinking, as you were sharing your story, man, I would love to put together a retreat. My challenge is, my zone of genius is definitely not putting together retreats. I have a huge sales background, and my partner has a great systems environment background, and we would love to do that. We would just need a partner in figuring out how to make it work. So conversation for later, for sure, but I definitely want to have that conversation with you and how we might be able to benefit our clients.
Absolutely.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, because a number of things that you said in that last a bit of conversation that you had, was the whole idea. When I introduced you, you started with $600 in a pickup truck, and you created a multi-million-dollar business. The question that many people in my audience would have potentially is, how do I just go beyond just me, and making $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 from my business? How do I go beyond just me and create an environment where not only can I make a healthy 6 or 7 figure income, but then I can maybe even branch off and have other offices for my company, or even think about franchising? How did you know at what point you were ready for all of those things?
Yeah, well, the mentorship's been huge. I mean, just talking to other moving company owners on my podcast and through the retreats, and just in other businesses too, kind of reading between the lines on attending other industry conferences and just kind of seeing how those are laid out, and looking at other businesses. I can't walk into a business without like picking it apart and be like, oh, they could be doing this better or that better. But really, it comes down to systems and processes, and just building an awesome team of rock stars, being comfortable delegating some of the stuff that you do. Because I mean, what I've found with my current team today in the moving company is that they're better at that job than I was. I've done every job at one point or another, but my operations manager is better at operations. My sales guys are better at sales, so that's been a game changer, getting the right people on board, having those processes and those expectations and those checklists laid out so that they come on, they streamline the training. We have all of our systems and processes all the way from mover up to general manager and beyond, customer service, sales, whatever position it is. It's all documented in Trainual. We've got training videos that we've filmed in-house, basically to walk people through things, but even administrative tasks. We use Loom to record, administrative tasks. And just being able to replicate that and then having clear standards and a scorecard or some kind of an incentive plan tied to it and just getting the right people on board. You've probably heard long to hire, quick to fire. It's true. You want to get to a point where you're quick to hire and quicker to fire if they're not meeting the expectations. But the first step is to have those expectations laid out, have the playbook written out, make it as simple as possible so that a high school kid could understand it. And then just having other systems in place to hold them accountable for following those systems.
When did you know this was your thing? You're not it doesn't sound like you came from a moving company background. That just became the vehicle by which you could put to work all of these tools that you had created or learned through school and through your school of hard knocks for that matter. When did you know this was your thing?
Yeah, no, great question. So I never grew up wanting to be a moving company owner. I wanted to be a baseball player, but obviously that didn't work out. But I realized from an early age, probably around high school, that I did want to start my own business in something. And I saw my friends that, my parents were both teachers. We had a middle class income growing up. And I saw my friends that always had the nicest sports equipment or just drove the nicest cars. And when I would look into seeing what their parents were doing, a lot of times they were self-employed or they were business owners or entrepreneurs. And so I knew I wanted to do something. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. My parents moved around a lot. I always say they were joggers and they would go jogging in these neighborhoods and see a house that they'd fall in love with. And we moved like every 2 years growing up, even like across town, not necessarily into different cities, but just, in the area. And I hated every minute of it when they were moving so much. And my parents said, wouldn't it be funny if one day Wade owns a moving company? And I was like, that's never going to happen. Fast forward a few years, I was in college and it was during the recession and it was hard to find a job. It wasn't like today's labor market where companies are desperate for employees for especially entry-level stuff. I was competing with people with college degrees for servers at restaurants or whatever, general labor things that I was applying for. And I was home between semesters during the summertime and I needed to find a job. And I just started posting ads online saying college athlete looking to do any kind of general labor. Started to get calls to help out handymen with some things, mowing yards, helping a carpet cleaner out. And ultimately, I would get calls to help people load and unload U-Haul trucks. And so I liked that. I paid better than the other things, and I liked being physically active. I played some college baseball, and so I was in pretty good shape. I still like to think that I am, but it was good, hard, honest day's work. I'd usually get lunch and a tip at the end of it. And so I got back to the University of Florida and started doing the same thing. I would recruit my fraternity brothers or my little brother, who also went to University of Florida, to help me out if they needed more than just one person. I had a pickup truck and just started to get a lot of calls for moving. So I decided to kind of focus in on that. And when I graduated from college, I decided to do a 1-year entrepreneurship master's degree where like the thesis of the program was to start a business. And everybody in my class was trying to create the next Facebook or the next Uber, create these sexy apps.
Right.
And I'm sitting here like trying to embrace this moving company because I was making money on it and I enjoyed the work. I got to see a new job site every day and I was able to employ a lot of my friends and they thought I was silly for trying to be a mover in, while getting a master's degree in business. And I was like, well, we'll see who's laughing, in the long run. And I don't think any of those classmates are still running their own business that they were trying to start back then. So yeah, just embraced it head on. I saw there was a need in the market for a clean cut, collegiate, branded presence in the industry. And people liked the idea of hiring college students at the time. And so I just embraced it head on and just thought that, if these, blue collar guys that don't have any kind of an education or, maybe I'm smarter than them, in certain things. Like if they can do this and make money, then I feel like I can figure out a better way to do it. And definitely been a lot of hard knocks along the way. I mean, until I started the podcast and really sought out that mentorship, it was all just trial and error and trying to figure it out on my own. But maybe I'm a little bit crazy, but I kept going at it. I kept just trying new things and seeing what worked, and eventually it all started to kind of tie together, and here we are.
Well, they say that, what's this expression? Success leaves clues and mistakes leaves a huge mess in your wake. What's some of the stuff that was maybe even early on that was like, oh shit, I really fucked that one up. That was bad. That was horrible. I should never do that. I will never do that again. And sometimes you make that mistake twice. Do you remember any of those early on big mistakes that you made?
Oh yeah, big time. I mean, one thing, just keeping accurate financial records, knowing your profit and loss statement, knowing cash flow projections, because in the early days, I was doing every position in the company. I was on the trucks, and I'd have cash in my pocket. I'd go to the bar, or I'd go out and spend it on entertainment. I wasn't projecting, okay, this is what we need to do to get from level 1 to level 2. And just getting a really clear, dialed in financial. I was like, I'll just make all that money. I'll just get rich. I don't need to profit and loss statement and all this stuff. I don't need to analyze everything down to the decimal percentage of income. And so, that was a game changer, and just getting really clear on what metrics needed to be where. So like our labor percentage for movers needs to be 28% or less.
Yes.
There was a point I had no idea what my labor percentage was. Other marketing expenses should be 10% or less of our income in our industry. And I was just spending money on whatever marketing opportunity came my way that looked cool. And I didn't have a good trackable way to quantify those dollars, where those dollars were going. And now we're dialed into the point where I know exactly what the ROI is on every piece of marketing. We have tracking numbers on every single thing. And we set aside a little bit of money in the budget to try new things. I'm always open to trying new things, because sometimes you'll stumble on some silly marketing scheme that actually is super profitable.
Right.
But I know like what works, and I pump as much money as I can into what delivers the highest ROI first, and then I leave a little bit left over to try different things. And sometimes I stumble across a hidden gem. And I think knowing the numbers, getting marketing dialed in, made a big difference, because sales solve all problems in business. It's your oxygen. If you're having operational troubles, it's a lot easier to solve those if you have a lot of money that's coming in than it is if you're broke and you just have to, pray that this one operational system will work. It allows you to build out the systems, to get professionally recorded training videos done, to bring in really talented people to surround yourself and your company with, all that stuff. I mean, there's so many things I could talk for hours, but just to kind of summarize.
No, it's great. And what, everything that you say, and again, let me ask the question, because I don't want to answer the question here. I want you to answer, because I think you're going to have a great answer to this, is what is it in your business that is translatable into basically any business that's out there?
Yeah, I think knowing your numbers is probably the number one thing. I'm big on direct response marketing. There's a great book by Dan Kennedy called The No BS Guide to Direct Response Marketing for Non-Direct Response Businesses. I might have slightly butchered that, right. But it's a long title. But Dan Kennedy has a bunch of really amazing things. And just, I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't know the first thing about marketing, and just really understanding the psychology behind it and how to create trackable systems, always creating an offer with a timeline, deadline, creating that sense of urgency for the buyer, creating copy that resonates well. Pictures. There's a great book by Donald Miller, Story Branding, Building a Story Brand, where he talks about, figure out who your ideal customer is, and then relay all of your marketing material to resonate with that ideal customer. And a lot of businesses, I don't even think, know who their perfect customer is. And so they have a bunch of just marketing that isn't, it doesn't sync up with the other pieces, creating that consistent brand across the board, and knowing that your brand is more than just marketing. It's how you answer the phone. It's how your team shows up in front of the customer. I think all of those are really applicable to really any business.
Wade, your message is so applicable to pretty much any industry that is out there. One of the things that I didn't ask you before I hit record, and even in our application, because we don't know until we kind of get here and start having the conversation. but I'd be really curious, what would be successful for you as a result of being on a podcast like ours? You're in the moving business, so there's probably very few people that are in the moving business that are in my audience, but there could be somebody that's out there. So what would be successful if after this episode airs, this result happened, you would be able to say, that Doug guy, he actually did what I wanted, this show to do for me. What is that?
Yeah, so we're really trying to promote the franchise opportunity that we're offering, and you don't have to know anything about the moving business to get involved with a franchise with our company because of all those systems and processes that we have laid out. We're also trying to connect investors with ideal franchise candidates that might be young, they might be a rock star employee in my own company. They just don't have the money to go off and start their own franchise. So I'd love to build an ecosystem where we could connect investors with really, really good managing partners that could launch a franchise. I think that's a big one. And then just building up the personal brand, establishing myself as somebody who knows a little bit about business, so that when we do have franchisees that are looking at buying into our organization, or somebody who might be looking to attend a retreat, or somebody who might be looking to come and work for our company, I'm really trying to focus on building that personal brand too, because they're going to look to the top, who's leading this company, and establishing that authority and that credibility is another big reason I like to come on the podcast. So, I figure it'll just open doors. Again, I didn't really have an end goal when I started my moving company podcast, and it's allowed me to create other businesses and other opportunities and just meet really cool people. And I also learn a lot just talking to people like you.
I appreciate you saying you learned something from me, but that's very kind of you. It's really interesting when you start to have guests that are further down the road where you are right now, and I feel like that's the evolution of TurnKey. We've had our business for 8 years now. We are not a 7-figure business right now, but we know that we have our hands on a 7-figure business. We know we can take it there. We have a great team. We have great systems. I'm the only sales guy except for my niece. I just put into a sales capacity also, so she hopefully will be making some sales for us. But I look at all this and I'm thinking, man, what a cool guy to learn from. So I really feel like I have learned a lot from you, just you sharing your message, and me thinking, man, we really are going down the right path right now. Only doing the stuff that's within your zone of genius. I'm the big Gay Hendricks fan, the Big Leap. So I very much want to stay in the sales relationship building. Strickland wants to stay in the systems and processes side of things. So I hear it, and I feel like, man, there is definitely hope for, somebody like me, which I love to know. Those people that are in our community right now that are just trying to figure out, all right, let's. And by the way, I'm gonna send an email after we get done with this recording. There's a show that's on our network called Master Your Millions, and it is a company that deals with people that are looking for ways that they can expand their investment capacity outside of just the stock market. So could be a good fit for you. But, for those in our community that are really interested in getting more information or trying to figure out, all right, how do I get a little bit closer to Wade, or how can I figure out how do I take advantage of an opportunity that you may have? What's the best way for them to get to you, Wade?
Yeah, absolutely. You can connect with me on Instagram. It's just at my first and last name, at Wade Swikle. That's a great way to connect with me. I check the direct messages all the time. So if you want to get right through to me, that's a great way to do it. You can, of course, check out our website, twocollegebrothers.com, if you're looking to move or interested in a franchise opportunity. Probably not a lot of listeners are going to be interested in attending a Moving Titan retreat, but if there are, of course, check out movingtitanretreats.com. And I'm also, I didn't mention this before, but I'm a partner in a wiffle ball league. So that's a fun pastime of mine, and we're trying to grow the league and get more people playing competitive wiffle ball, because it's a ton of fun. We just had a tournament this past Saturday, and we're trying to grow this league across Florida right now and maybe beyond. So, if you're interested in that too, you can definitely just shoot me a message. I'm happy to connect. I'm happy to offer any kind of business advice. And I just love networking. There's two things people can't take away from you. It's your name and your network. And by doing stuff like this, I can expand upon both and get that exposure.
I spent 30 years in the bar mitzvah business as an MC before retiring in May, after the overlap of my production business and my DJ business. Moved out to California, been enjoying this podcast production thing for the 8 or 9 years I've been doing it. the guy that retired with me about the same time, he has spent a lot of time in Florida. He's a part of the cornhole league. I didn't even know, like wiffle ball. I didn't know there was any kind of wiffle ball league. He's part of the cornhole. That game that has the little.
Oh yeah.
I never even. I mean, I thought it was just a beach game. I didn't realize there was like a competitive situation going on there. So it's pretty cool. Very similar to wiffle ball in its enthusiastic participants.
Yeah, we want to get it on ESPN one day. You've got all these little niche random sports. It seems like a new one pops up all the time. You've got spike ball, professional spike ball. You've got pickleball's taking off, of course. So why not wiffle ball? It's a ton of fun. I like it more than baseball from my baseball playing days.
Well, Wade, I so appreciate you being here, and thank you for spending a little bit extra time with me. I know we went over our allotted time, but thanks for sharing, and thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Hey, Nice Guy community, never underestimate the power of nice. Special thanks to Wade Swikle. All of his information, including access to his IG page and also his website, will be right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. Fill up your week with the nice guys. Well, there's always money in the banana stand.